Greetings and welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of Poly Weekly News. I'm your host, David Danto, and joining me this week is one of my colleagues from the EMEA region, Lars Berlau. Lars, why don't you say hello to everybody? Tell everyone who you are and what you do.
Hi there, everyone. I'm Lars Berlau, based in Copenhagen, but covering the Nordics and especially regarding Microsoft. So I'm a solution engineer for Poly in the Nordics, doing a lot of fun stuff, of course, having a lot of conversation with our end customers, but also supporting our internal sales guys.
That's great. Tell us a little bit about your journey coming to Poly. How long have you been with HP Poly? How long, what did you do beforehand? Tell us a little bit about your story.
I've been with Poly HP for around 1.5 years, so that's not too long compared to a lot of the other guys here. I've been in the industry for about 15 years at several different AV IT resellers, a few distributors, and then I came across Poly products back in the day. So that's almost 12 years ago when I sold Poly products. That was in the good old HDX days, and I've been working very close with Microsoft since the launch of the Surface Hub version 1, which I was a product manager for. So we did that launch of the Surface Hub version 1 in Denmark. So that was kind of my journey into the Microsoft world.
Awesome. And I see the MVP sign behind you. I assume that means you have a certain amount of expertise in Microsoft systems and Microsoft Teams systems, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So that's at least what they agreed, that I'm okay doing that technical stuff as well. So this was my first award, and I just got re-awarded this year. So now my second MVP award.
That's terrific. Congratulations. So let's
Thank
talk
you.
a little bit about what's going on with some of the HP Poly users that are using Microsoft Teams. I know there's been a bit of a flip in terms of how licensing works for rooms, that
Yeah.
it's not the way it was before, and they were changing it, and then they paused it and gave it a little more time, and then the changes. Tell us what the story is there.
Yeah, sure. So maybe as someone know that there was like a while back, there was a change of the licenses to the Teams rooms. So we used to have the standard license and the premium license, and that changed into the basic license and the pro license. So that one have been there for a while, and they kind of said that that will go full onboarding at the end of July. So even though customers still tend to use an personal license, the E3 or an E5 license, that would not work the end of July. Then there was a kind of a grace period that Microsoft added. So they added 90 days to the end of July, which means that the customers that still haven't changed the licenses, they still have a few months to actually make it work again, or keep it alive, I would say.
So the simple version, if I can tell me if I understand this correctly, because I watched this. I'm not as much of a Microsoft expert as you are, but the simple version is people have been using the licenses that come along with E3, E5 since they've started using Microsoft Teams in rooms, and now the room system needs to be licensed itself, and at some point that's going to stop working if it's not licensed that way.
Yes, exactly. So I think I would say, like back in the days when we had the first Surface Hub version and the Skype room systems, there wasn't really a license for that shared area or shared room. So a lot of people just used an E3 license or an E5 license because they already had that. And a lot of people have been using that for quite a while, even though it haven't been allowed to use it. But again, if they have the license and it works, then a lot of people don't really change it. But now Microsoft is like limiting that use. So even though that there's still a lot of people using it, that one would have gone end of life in the end of July. So if you use the personal license, the Teams room would simply not be able to log in and not functioning. And that caused some issues because a lot of huge organizations had to add additional license and change from a personal license into a meeting room license. And that takes time in some organizations. So that's why Microsoft added this grace period on 90 days. So, it's non-compliant to use an e-license, but now it's definitely going to be end of life. So if people out there are still using a personal license, they should definitely go and change that as soon as possible.
Are you seeing customers make the move now to become compliant?
Yeah, definitely. I would say that a few months ago, I was still hearing a lot of customers, well, it's still working, but I was like, yeah, it's still working, but first of all, it's not compliant. Second is that now we go into the summer period where a lot of people have vacation. You need to make sure that this is working before you go to vacation. And now there's not a lot of customers that uses the E3 or E5 license, unless that they had some issue changing the licenses. But I see less and less people are having that, but I still see some large organizations that haven't done the changes yet. And I think this is a good time to go and do it right away.
Good. I appreciate. We definitely need to give that warning to everybody and make sure that everybody's got up to speed as to where they are right now.
Yeah.
We should also talk a little bit about historically and where we are today regarding Teams. You know, there had been a big disparity between Teams on the PC platform and Teams on the Android platform, or Windows and Android, and there isn't that much difference anymore. There have been a lot of pieces. You know, at HP at Poly, we support and. There's no right answer here. If people prefer operating in a Windows environment, we make that available for them. If they prefer operating in an Android environment, we make that available for them. And many organizations have a mix. But the difference between the two is closing, right? We have even more features that have come out on Android recently.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's a good point to say that we support both. So we take on the Microsoft strategy of having like Teams Room both on Windows and on Android. And it's not really up to us to make the decision on which one that the customer should choose. Back in the days, it was more like, what kind of features are you wanting to have in each room? And then we could find the preferred version or the preferred device to put into that room. But since the gap is getting smaller and smaller, it's very, very few features that are not available on both. So first of all, front row is a huge step for Microsoft. So that one have been available for quite a while on Windows. That one is on Android as well. Then there was like adding additional cameras, so multi-camera support, like switching between two cameras during a call, or could be like a presenter cam, it could be a audience cam, and then switching between those two cameras. That is now also available on Android. And then content camera, well, that's also an external camera, but there's also now content camera support on our Android-based devices. So I think the gap is getting smaller and smaller. So now it's more like to what kind of device are you confident managing in your environment? And of course, there are some differences, but most of the people that I talk with, it's not really about should we choose to go with Windows or should we choose to go with Android. It's more like a mix, like you said. There will be some offices that would be perfect for a Windows-based system, but there are some other rooms that would be perfect for an Android-based solution.
Yeah, and one of the things that's interesting about our team solutions is that 99% of everything we do, I'd say 100%, but I'm going to talk about the exception in a minute. But 99% of what we do is natively team certified, which is not just a rubber stamp or a sticker. It's a very rigorous process to make sure that every component that we make meets Microsoft guidelines, to the point that Microsoft is certifying that if you take a component from one of our inferior competitors out of a room, like a camera, and you put in one of our superior cameras, that it's completely interchangeable as long as they've both been natively certified. So we go through a lot of testing. I know our new headsets, the Voyager Surround 80, which is the only boomless open office certified, Microsoft open office certified headset on the market right now, really in advance. One of the products, though, that isn't Microsoft Teams certified that we just announced is we've now enabled our E70 camera, which is our terrific standalone USB camera, which is a Teams certified camera, of course. Have now enabled it to connect over PoE, over Ethernet, which is a tremendous help in terms of setting up rooms, setting up connections to the G7500, a lot less wiring to run, a lot of other things. But that's not Microsoft certified, at least not yet, because it's not interchangeable with any other Microsoft cameras because there are no other Microsoft cameras that you can connect this PoE. So
Yeah.
we're sort of leading the market there, and I'm sure that the market will catch up and we'll be able to go for certification on that. Have you seen anybody start to take advantage of that new connection capability?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, USB cable runs is always limited by the distance. So I would say that having that ability to actually PoE enable the E70 camera and have like long cable runs connected directly to the T75 run, that's a absolutely benefit of doing it like that. I would say that we have been able to do the power connection over PoE instead of having that power, power supply. But to get the team certification right now, you still need to connect it with USB. And I think moving forward, that would be a huge step to actually get that team certification as well. It will help a lot. I mean, we know for a fact that people don't want to run long USB cables. They need to extend it anyway through Ethernet and plug it directly into the Ethernet port on the E70 camera, connect it directly to the T75 run, and that's absolutely stunning solution because it makes it so much easier and much more reliable.
Yeah, so we will definitely be pursuing that because obviously we want to go for certification as well. But it's nice to be leading the market every once in a while with solutions that nobody else has.
Yeah,
so from
definitely.
your perspective, where you're visiting customers in the Nordics and some of the other areas, tell me what you're seeing in terms of this whole concept of hybrid communication, return to the office, working remotely, working from home. Have people made their decisions yet? Is it still something that they're working out solutions? What have you seen?
I would say a lot of people, a lot of organizations have made some kind of decisions, like they need to be in the office like 2-3 days a week, but it's also kind of a fluid organization. So depending on the work style or which kind of role you got in the company, you might be working more or less from the office or more or less from the home. But I would say that there's a lot of still need for going out and educating people about how can we make hybrid work instead of just make it possible to do. I would say that there's definitely somewhere where you need to be in the office because that's kind of where you have the social things going on between the people. But for instance, I work full-time from home, but I'm also traveling a lot. So I get that social thing when I'm traveling. Every now and then I still go to the office in Copenhagen or just outside of Copenhagen. If I have meetings with clients and customers, we want to go and see products. But basically, from my point, I have every product in my home office. So sometimes it's just easier for me to stay in my home office because I can do like everything in my home office instead of going to a specific office and need to go into a lot of different meeting rooms to actually have that ability to go and show the different products. But I think from like the normal users or the normal organizations, it's really a lot about talking about how could they make hybrid work, because a lot of organizations have just made, no, it's okay to work from home, but they haven't really thought about how can we optimize the meeting space, both at the home, but also into the meeting rooms. And a lot of organizations still have that, I would say, still kind of an old-fashioned way of putting up a meeting room. So they kind of have a long meeting table and then the screen in the end of the table. But it's really difficult for the cameras to have a good view of all the people if they're sitting like looking through a bowling alley instead of just simple turn the table and then front the meeting room or the screen. That will make it so much easier for the camera to capture everyone. And another thing is the benefit is that then we speak directly to the screen. And then, of course, the microphone will be so much easier to pick up the audio. And I honestly have a big, it made a big difference for me when I turned the table, because I was used to having that bowling alley table as well. But changing the table actually makes me talk with the remote participant instead of just talking with the people around the table. And if we need to make hybrid work, then we need to make sure to include the remote participants to kind of get them into the meeting as well. Otherwise, it will just be a participant sitting out there and then listening to the call.
Yeah, it's every room is different, every space is different, but we're no longer having, it's no longer acceptable to have meetings where the remote participants are second-class citizens. We need to be able to make sure that we bring them into the conversation, that they can interrupt at any time, that they can be heard, that they can be seen, that they can see whatever content is being shared. We've made a lot of progress toward doing that. We're not 100% there yet, but we're definitely getting there. Are you seeing companies in the area and organizations make changes to their rooms to bring in some of the newer technology?
Yeah, definitely. I would say both technology, but also furniture, because that's a big part of it. And I think that's one of the major issues right now at the organizations is that we have an IT part, maybe an HR, somebody else with the facility. And we need to make sure that those organizations are talking together to optimize the whole meeting area, because we can put like great technology in there. But if the meeting table is not there, if the acoustic is not good in the meeting room, we need to make sure that this is optimized to get the best experience.
That's terrific. So go ahead.
No, I would definitely say we're seeing more and more organization, maybe not in a larger scale, but like testing out what kind of things would work for them. And we still need to consider that we don't have one size fits all. We need to make some meeting rooms differently. And as I say, kind of for the fun of it, we are always in beta. We need to make sure that we start to do something, and we need to be ready to actually change if it's not working. So I know that's, of course, that's some organizations are not too happy about that because they don't have the budget to do changes all the time. But I honestly don't think that there's a lot of budget involved. It could be like simple things like just changing the furniture around or add couches into the meeting room, and it makes a difference compared to where you sit, and also what kind of meeting that you have. So for instance, like as some few months back that we added like the whiteboard function into the Teams rooms on Android. Well, that means that we might need to change something. Instead of like everyone sitting on low chairs, maybe we should put in high chairs instead, because we know that it's so much easier to get people standing up next to the system if they have high chairs. And that's a really small thing to do, but it makes a huge impact on the way that they actually do it.
Yeah.
Or make sure that it's easy to get up and sit next to the screen or stand next to the screen. It will also be a different meeting if you have a couch, because that would be more laid back. Couch is also quite soft, so that would give a lot of acoustic benefit into the meeting room. So there's a lot of things that you can do that don't necessarily would take out your budget, but just be curious and try stuff out and ask the employees, how is this working? And make sure that there are different ways of working, and make sure that you kind of support that in the meeting rooms as well.
Yes. And we do have a new feature in our 4.1 firmware. I think it's 4.1, right? That where echo is removed from the conversation. And I'll grab a clip of that and play it for everybody right here, just so that everybody can get a sense of how really good that is, because it's an amazing capability.
Reverberation can be a major issue in video calls, especially in larger spaces that have a lot of glass walls, like you see here. And you might notice this even more as people start to turn away from the microphones to talk to someone who's sitting more in the back of the room.
Typically, to remove these audio artifacts, it would require acoustic paneling or complex hardware microphone arrays. And these can be very costly and time-consuming to install.
And now, with voice clarity enhancement from Poly, reverbs can be removed from calls via software upgrade. So let's turn the feature on. Voice clarity enhancement is now on, and you should be able to immediately hear the difference.
And this is true even for those who are sitting further away from the microphones. You should still sound close and clear, even if you're turning away to talk to someone who's sitting in the back of the room.
Yeah, that is amazing. I would say that I have a few customers that tested it out already. It's an absolutely game changer. I would always say that it makes sense to work in the room with acoustic panels like I have in my home office. But we also know that not all organizations have the money to add acoustic panels into the meeting rooms, so they might not have the option of doing it. But then again, when we come out with the 4.1 version, then we have that option of turning on sound reflection reduction. And it makes a huge impact because we know a lot of people think about audio that is from my mouth to your ears, but it's basically bouncing all around in the meeting room. And a lot of people are happy about glass and hard surfaces in a meeting room. And that's absolutely worst thing you can put into a meeting room, but that's the architect's pleasure of doing that. So
It's always the battle of the aesthetics versus the acoustics.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. Thank you for spending time with us today. If somebody wants to reach out to you, I want to find out what's the best way for them to get in touch with you, ask you a question, and reach out.
I think the easiest way would be to find me on LinkedIn. I do a lot of posts and stuff around there, both videos, but also like short articles about new stuff coming out that could be both from Microsoft and of course can be from HP Poly. So on LinkedIn, that's where I'm most active, I would say.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Lars. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with everybody this week. On next week's show, we're going to be talking about Google Next. This is the first year that HP Poly is going to be at the Google Next event, and I'll have amongst my guests David Rosenthal from Google, and we'll be talking a little bit about the history of what's going on with Google for collaboration and the name changes and all the other things. So come and join us for that one. But until then, for everybody at HP and Poly, I'm David Danto. Thank you very much for spending the time with us as always. We really do appreciate it, and we'll see you next week.